Representatives.
Well, I actually told my maternal grandfather I was going to be the state rep in 1970. I was 18 years old, home on vacation break for Easter from college, and I was helping him on his dairy farm, and we were mending fences and talking about who was going to be the next state rep. And we discussed the people that were running, and I told him I was going to be state rep someday. He was a Republican committee man in Springfield Township for many years.
Your maternal grandfather?
Yeah, and I met, almost every elected official in his driveway over the years. I'd be there as a kid working there in the summertime at the farm, and people running for office would stop to see him. Excluding probably the Goodling family, who I grew up in Loganville and knew them all my life. But I graduated in December of '73, mid-year from college. So I had redshirted 1 year in wrestling in college. I was going to go the 5th year to wrestle, and then had enough injuries I wasn't wrestling anymore, so I had the credits to graduate, so there was no reason to remain. But there weren't any teaching jobs available in January of '74. So I was home for about a week or two, and I said something to my father and said, "You get around the places that are doing construction work, see if anybody's hiring. I just want something to do until I can pick up a job." And within a week, within a day or two, he told me that Adhesives Research was looking to hire a couple people, and they were building the facility at Glen Rock. And I walked in the door the next day and asked for a job, and the guy said, "I'll give you a job, but you can't work like that," because I was dressed in a suit. And I said, "Well, I'll go home and change." He said, "We'll come back tomorrow." So I started working for them on the 18th of January, construction of the facility. Within a couple months, the process engineer that was installing all the support equipment, the emission control equipment, and all the support equipment, decided he was leaving for another job. And they offered me his job, and I told them I wasn't an engineer, and they said, "You have 1 degree and you know what you're doing, just do it for a while." So I was doing that, and then the environmental regs hit, the federal environmental regulations started to hit, and they said, "Can you read this stuff and be in political science pre-law?" Yeah, no problem. And from that day forward, I was the safety and environmental manager for the company.
What's the most exciting thing that happened to you in your tenure there? Was that during the time that there was the explosion, or was that after?
Well, it depends which one. There were two.
Okay.
And I was definitely there for the first one.
Okay. What was that like?
It was exciting.
Yeah.
The environmental manager, safety manager of a company pretty much takes over when that happens, and it was very interesting time.
What year was that?
Oh gee, that was '87. Not that I remember it well, but it was December 14th, 1987 at 5 p.m. Some things you just don't forget.
And you, this whole time, I mean, you're working at Adhesives Research, but you're thinking that's still a goal in your mind that you want to be state rep?
Yeah, it was always there. But I had a great job, and I loved what I did. At the end of '91, but it was probably January of '92, Peck Foster announced he was not running for re-election. And a lot of people thought I would run at that time, and I chose not to. As I said, I loved my job. I had a great job. It paid a lot more than being state rep pays, and it just seemed to me not to be the right thing to do at the time, so I declined to do it. Mike Wall and I sat in my living room and talked about both of us running, and I told him that I was not going to do it and that I would support him.
How did you know Mike at the time?
Believe it or not, Mike was the assistant fire chief the night of the '87 fire, and he was the one that took the crew into the room when the building blew up, when that room blew. So that's how Mike and I met.
So you guys.
6 years later, he decided he was running for the Senate, and the conversation was, when he was considering it, we talked about it late summer, early fall of that year, and I told him if he did it, I would support him, and he asked if I was going to then run, and I told him every reason I didn't run before was still valid. But then with the support of my wife, she said, something you always said you wanted to do. So it was time to do it.
So you took a pay cut.
A pay cut.
What were some of those other reasons? I mean, the pay.
Yeah, well, and I love my job. I mean, if a person's unhappy with their job, I tell everybody, if you don't enjoy what you do, going to work, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, switch jobs. I mean, you can't just quit, but you need to start looking and get additional education or whatever it takes for you to make that move. But I hate seeing people that are unhappy going to work. That, you know, I can't imagine being in that position. So, but I loved what I did. It wasn't like I was looking to leave. I had had offers to go to other companies and wasn't interested in leaving Adhesives Research. Great company. So it was one of those things. But I had reached a point where if I wasn't going to do it then, when was I going to do it? So with Kitty's support, we decided it was time.
And of course, you won. So
It was an interesting election, yes.
yeah, what was interesting about it? What kind of sticks out?
Well, it was a very tight race in the primary. I won by, and I don't know, 78, 82 votes, call it 80, whatever. I probably have that record at home somewhere, but I don't remember exactly. But it was a close race.
Who was your opponent?
Barb Betzler was one, and Joyce Kesey ran.
So two women.
Two women. Barb was the stronger of the two, and would have made a good state rep. We didn't run against each other. We both ran for the position.
Right.
Barb has since become a very close friend.
And in the general, I'm assuming it wasn't as close of a race?
No.
Did you have a Democratic opponent?
I did. Jeff Sanders was the Democrat. He was on the Southern School Board. He was the president of the Southern School Board, which was interesting because I was on the Dallastown School Board. We knew each other. I made a promise to the Republican caucus that I'd get 75% of the vote and didn't get it.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
apologized to the speaker. I only got 74.9.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh, that's funny. So you apologized to the speaker after you were inaugurated?
No. Actually, the next morning he called me about 7 o'clock that morning after the election to congratulate me. And I was just giving him a hard time. We had fun. But, well, part of it's interfacing with the constituents and helping them to figure out what needs to be done to resolve their issues. But that sort of applies across to the legislative side too. There's a reason why we were able to get some of the legislation done through when I chaired the Labor and Industry Committee last session. Bill Keller, my Democratic counterpart from Philadelphia, the minority chair of the House Labor and Industry Committee, and I philosophically agree on little. Have very little in common in our backgrounds. But we got along great. Bill's a great guy. Key with Bill is his word is his bond. So we could argue and fight, but we could always find a way to come to a resolution to get something done. And I give Bill a lot of credit for that. But he recognized the dynamics of it. I had the votes to move legislation out of committee, but he would make his points, and if we could accommodate something, we would. So I think it's why we were able to get the workers' compensation reform done that we were able to get. The unemployment comp reform. There were several very heavy issues that we needed to take on because the unemployment comp system was basically broke. We owed the federal government billions.
So you would say your biggest strength as a legislator was kind of bringing that together and working with people who had different opinions to try to at least get something that you could
To a consensus, something we could get passed. I think that proved itself in the smoking ban legislation. The Speaker of the House appointed me to the conference committee to get that done. And we had long, difficult meetings, but we finally came to something. What's interesting when you come to a conference committee report, it's 6 people, 3 from the House, 3 from the Senate, and you must report out a piece of legislation that you believe can get the majority of the votes in both chambers and be signed by the governor with no amendments. When it comes out of the conference committee, it cannot be amended. So it has to be your best shot at a compromise agreement. And that was certainly, I think we don't do a whole lot of conference committees, but I think almost every legislator ought to get the chance to serve on one.
Yeah.
Because it's a very educational experience. It's enlightening to what it takes to reach that consensus and that conclusion.
You know, historically, 50 years from now, when someone looks back at your tenure, what are the big things they're going to take away from it?
That'll be an interesting question. I don't know per se. What is interesting, I think I had a major impact on moving the school funding issue discussion forward.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. I was not appointed to the Education Committee when I was first elected. I had to fight my way onto that committee. And I fought my way on that committee for a reason. With 10 years on the Dallastown School Board, 10 years on the VOTEC Operating Committee, I have an understanding of the education funding issues much deeper than most people.
Mm-hmm. Overall, what are, you know, including every topic, from the smoking ban to everything, what are the pieces of legislation that you authored that were signed into law that you feel are like the meat of?
Well, I mean, we had a military family relief bill that was signed into law to help the families of our National Guard. Basically, when they're deployed, they do what they do with great pride and willingness. I had a concern for their families that were left at home. Some of them weren't hurt too bad economically, but others left a much higher paying job and had their National Guard salary, and some companies actually help to make that up, but others do not. So the concern was for the families, so we had some success in getting a bill passed that provides some monetary relief to those families through voluntary donations. We had a bill passed on to provide for bicycle safety, the 4-foot passing requirement. It's an interesting bill. What it is more of an educational tool to get something into the transportation code so that new drivers learn what the requirements are. People that go through, whether it's the 55 Alive driving program for older citizens to refresh their driving skills. You know, it's things like that where it'll have a difference. Educational piece that people understand that bicycles are allowed to use the road. That one took a while. We passed a bill last year, was signed into law last year to help the farm community with preserved land. The requirement was that the land, and it also helped the county.
What was that called?
Well, off the top of my head, I can't tell you the name of it. What basically happens is when you preserve land, the county has to go out and inspect it every year to ensure that it's in compliance. And talking to the farm community, and certainly Patty McCandless at the Ag Preservation Group in York, it was clear that, you know, the farm community is pretty honest. They didn't need to be inspected every year. The problem was that York County was very successful in preserving land, and they were going to have to hire another person. It was going to be costly to the county. So what we were able to do is, by changing it to every 2 years, And we got rid of some of the other things that were a bit, they weren't needed, such as everything had to be done in certified letters and stuff.
So it sounds like that cut a lot of,
Red tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, we changed the law that way. And it helped the county and it helped the farm community. Being inspected is, you know, a part of life when
Right.
you're living under regulations, but it's never pleasant. It always takes you away from your primary job. So we made that somewhat easier.
so now what are you gonna do?
I don't know.
You don't know? Do you have
Nope.
ideas,
No pla-
interests,
No plans.
no plans?
Gonna ski a little more, bike a little more. I have 100 people who told me what I need to do, and we'll see.
What are they saying?
Oh, it's all kinds of things, from lobbying to looking for a position in the new administration to a little bit of everything.
Are you entertaining an offer from Tom Wolf's transition
I have
team?
not
or is it
received an offer,
Not,
so
okay.
there's nothing to entertain.
Okay. Well, I'll just wait for the press release on that one if that ends up happening then.
The only thing I will say is I want to see Tom Wolf succeed. He is from York County.
Yeah, how do you kind of reconcile that, being that you guys are from, you're a Republican, he's a Democrat, you're obviously ideologically,
Same way I reconciled working with Bill Keller, the minority chair of the Labor and Industry Committee. You know, serving has never been about me. It's about getting things done, helping people. I don't think it'd be that hard to reconcile.
do you think?
Doesn't mean there wouldn't be differences.
Yeah, right, exactly. But you had already said that one of your strengths was just that. So if he were to bring you on board for a legislative, for something,
Again, nobody has talked to me.
okay.
I've heard rumors too, and I smile. Matter of fact, I've heard so many rumors of what I'm going to be doing. It's like, man, I wouldn't have enough time in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah.
It's been a great 16 years. Wow.
Would you consider running for office again?
I never say never.
Okay.
My campaign committee has not been shut down.
That's a good place to leave things.
Stay tuned. I'm not running for judge, I can tell you that.